Okay, I'm clicking go live. Go live.
Anytime,
Setting.
Andrew.
Yep, waiting for the meeting to start, and we are live. Everybody, you are watching and listening to the We Are Rising podcast. This is your host, Andrew Benjamin. I'm joined by my co-host, watching the big NCAA game, Jay Christian Gary from Focus Fights.
Hey, y'all, how's it going? And obviously, we have Charles Jewett, a native of Indianapolis, Indiana, who's all the way out in Japan at 6 a.m. in the morning. Well, 7 a.m. in the morning, wishing he can get up and watch where his Indiana Hoosiers will be ranked in this tournament.
I mean, are they any good? The only thing I saw was that Purdue beat Penn State in something. As you can tell, I cover a lot of college sports.
Understood. But the point of the matter is, we're not here to talk about March Madness as much as I would want it to be, because, of course, let's face it, we're in the biggest time for sports throughout the entire calendar year. We got March Madness coming up this upcoming weekend, obviously. We got WrestleMania coming up in about 3 weeks' time. And we got the rise of Rizin, bringing back foreign talent for Rizin, Trigger the Third and Rizin 35 on Easter weekend. But before we get into all that, we got to talk about Rizin 34, which is going to take place next Sunday from the Maruzen Intech Arena in Osaka, Japan. That event will air at 1 a.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Pacific, live on Live Now for the international audiences, or it'll be streaming on Rizin Live, Exciting Rizin, and all these other different platforms for the Rizin Fighting Federation in Japanese.
We go, Chris, we are forgetting the most important event that just happened. The Deep Jewels 36 show that CJ was at.
Oh, yes, of course. We got to talk about Deep Jewels 36 before we talk about Rizin. CJ, I see that you took after me and took after Mickey K a bit, jotting down all the entrance music. I got to ask, when it came down to the Deep Jewels 36 card, music aside, what were your overall thoughts about it?
It was awesome. I mean, there were a lot of fans there. The overall environment was really cool. But I mean, they lost 3 fights, but despite that, it was absolutely awesome. I mean, there's a ton of star power on the card. There were a ton of rising veterans. Sakakibara was in attendance. Sadario's brother was ringside. Kudomoto was there with his wife. I mean, the stars came out to watch, and for good reason. It was fun.
Right. Of course. But when it came down to Rin Nakai making her return to MMA competition for like the first time in, I would say, 3 years tops. I mean,
2 or 3 years,
what was the overall atmosphere like when it came down to that? Because obviously Rin Nakai just beat the hell out of her opponent.
Well, it's kind of interesting because Rin Nakai afterwards said that her whole strategy was to kind of spend some time striking to work on that. That's why she doesn't really go for a takedown the entire first round. And Rin Nakai is fairly short, but she's kind of able to get away with it in the beginning because she's so strong. Her punches had a lot of power. But as the second round went on, I mean, she started eating more and more shots. She started looking more and more uncomfortable on her feet. So she took Fujita down. But once she took her down, she was all over like a spider monkey. I mean, she transitioned to mount super easily and went for an arm triangle briefly before just pounding her out. I mean, once she gets on top of people, that's where her true strength is. So it'll be interesting to see if she continues to try to do this whole I want to strike 2 angle, because that might eventually cost her. I mean, she's only like 5'1" or 5 feet tall, which is pretty short for 125 pounds.
True. Of course. And even though she did win this particular fight, I don't know what this. I mean, this is a part of the Deep Jewels Flyweight Grand Prix, correct?
It is. unfortunately, 2 of the fights were scrapped because of the injuries or COVID. So on May 8th, it'll be her, Shizuka Sugiyama, Tia, and Aoi Kuriyama from your guys' favorite Smoker Gym. They will be in the semifinals and the finals.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah. But
Fun.
CJ, you have my sympathies that unfortunately Hikaru Ono unfortunately lost her fight.
That was upsetting, right? Gotta wonder what she's gonna do now. Because I mean, but that's not to sell her short. Moetti Suda is a stud. She's only 17 years old. But watching it, I'm sure you guys can relate. It's like, oh, she almost got one armbar. Oh, she almost got another armbar.
That seemed
she almost got another armbar. Oh,
it seemed to be the story of the show was arm bars because there was a Sugiyama Nirvana fight that almost ended in an armbar. I think there was another fight that ended in an armbar.
Motono Miki finished with an armbar.
That was
and
it as well.
Oshima almost got an armbar.
Deep Jules armbar. That's what they should have called the show.
This is one of those situations where it kind of reminds me of, this isn't a submission, but when Travis Brown fought Alistair Overeem and he just kept throwing that front kick. I was like, oh, Travis Brown doesn't seem to be like, Overeem doesn't seem to be worried about these at all. He seems fairly dismissive. Where it's like oh,
what after this. Travis Brown's train of thought trying to outstrike a former K1 champion.
He did. He knocked him out with those front kicks. And it was just like Overeem is like, maybe you should start taking these serious. He seems to only be focusing on this, where it was like, I don't know, maybe you should get out of her guard. She seems to only be throwing up arm bars.
I see.
What would you say was the fight of the night? Because I'm sure that Deep Jules is going to upload these to YouTube. Soon. What would you call like the fight of the night?
That's tough because I thought all of the fights were actually fairly exciting. The only fight that was kind of iffy to me was the Sadai Manhoof fight. And that's not that it was a boring fight. It's just that it was the only fight that really didn't have any implications. It was like, oh, a 47-year-old is fighting someone else who also took a really long time off. All the other fights seem like they have really important consequences. So I was less interested in that. But atom weight wise, Shizuka Sugiyama's fight had the most drama because she was fairly dominant until the last minute when it was almost ended by an armbar. But I was most impressed by Motono and Suda's fights. So it's hard to pick a best one though, because they're all so different.
Your recap was great, especially explaining about how the judges were scoring differently for this. There was like more judges for this Grand Prix than normal. They had to pick a winner. There could be no draws, and what exactly they had to look for. So that was go check out your anybody who's listening should read your article to absolutely get familiar. Because
historically, Deep Jules had 2-round and Deep Jules had 2-round fights, but the problem was that led to like so many draws because like, oh, they won the first round, they won the second round, it's over. And so now for most of the fights, they do a must win, where even if it's a draw, the judges have to pick who they thought won to kind of eliminate these draws from happening.
That whole must win thing kind of confused me a bit in the main event because I've read all these scores. I basically read it like, oh, were there like 5 judges running this fight or something? Is there an extension round? Like how it is kickboxing?
It could be confusing, but like from what it seems in their title fights and these tournament fights, they switch over to 5 judges to really try to get away from that draw territory so that they can try to get an accurate decision.
Yeah, to make sure there's an outright winner and an outright loser.
Right. And to maybe prevent like a robbery like situation.
Oh yeah.
And also, who wants to draw during a Grand Prix? That's just it just screws things up. Because what do you do? Exactly. What do you do with a draw in a Grand Prix? What do you? It just fucks up the Grand Prix. So I would obviously there has to be a winner. So I'm glad that there's like that they like are doing like a very strict sort of judging, and also that we don't have any like Adelaide birds or anything that are going to try to fuck it up for
those that have watched. For those that have regularly watched Shootboxing and Deep Jules, because they're allowed to score rounds 10-10, you do start noticing like maybe occasionally there is like the judge who's willing to commit to a winner for a round.
Well, yeah, I mean, like it's the same thing. Like whenever you look at people at like a lot of older Japanese fighters MMA career at the beginning, and you see like, oh, they're like 5-4, 6-4, 6-5-7 draws. You know that like
Yeah,
some fighters have
exactly.
like just like an absurd amount of draws, and it's like when you look at the fight, oh, it's a 2-round shooto fight, and when you look at
Yeah.
and if you find the fight, it's like, wait, what judge found that? What judge found that to be an actual like draw? Yeah, no. So I'm glad that like Deep Jewels is like has revamped their
Yeah.
has
I'm a
revamped their
fan of the must-win decisions as well because it was like the one weakness of the 2-round fights. I remember I was speaking to Hikaru Aono like 10 years ago, and she said, I was like, asked her, do you like the 2-round or the 3-round fights? Kind of a loaded question. I was assuming she'd say she preferred the 3-round fights. And she said she liked the 2-round fights because it was more of a sprint. Both the fighters were able to kind of not hold anything back and go at it with everything they had instead of having to conserve their energy for a final round. So I thought it's kind of an interesting approach.
Gotcha. Oh, I see. I see. Okay. Well, hopefully Hikaru Ono can snap back into a win for her next fight and then get on a Rizin
Yeah.
card with her fiance. Are they fiance now? Fiance
I don't know if they're engaged
girlfriend?
or not. That'd be cool. There's a ton of super atom weights, so just put her against like Nisei or someone like that. And yeah.
And I
Well,
mean, think of it, when it comes down to the final four in that deep flyweight Grand Prix, do you think that a fight between Aono and Ren Nakai would be more possible to see rather than, say, a Shizuka Nakai rematch?
No, because I think the question comes down to who does Sugiyama want to fight because they're going to do another random drawing. And Sugiyama, it's like, does she want to get to the finals or does she want to guarantee a fight with Ren Nakai happens? And my theory would be Ren Nakai is probably, if Sugiyama doesn't face her in the semifinals, Nakai is probably going to beat the other person that she fights. And Sugiyama probably would rather face a more tired Ren Nakai than a fresh Ren Nakai. And Sugiyama's already beat Aoi Kuriyama. So the strategist in me thinks that maybe she'd pick her again.
Just to get an easy fight.
Yeah, just to go into because both the fights are going to be in one night. So maybe to do that and hope that Tia tires Ren Nakai out somehow.
But yeah, so Deep will probably upload those hopefully soon to their channel.
Yeah.
Hopefully don't lose a password and
well,
we never get to
I will say that I am now followed by 3 official Deep Jewels Twitter accounts. So they do seem to have some problems keeping their passwords.
Yes. Yeah. Listen, I'll tell you, the only way I keep up the fights is just through Shigeru Sakai's Facebook, because whenever there's a fight announced, he always puts on there. That to me is the official Deep account.
But it is. That's literally where all the announcements come from. I don't think there is like another place where they can reliably be counted on to come from.
But yeah, be on the lookout for that, and also check out the CJ's article that recapped the show, and it was very informative, along with the music choices that they came out to, because we will not get to see those on the YouTube version.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, that's right. All you guys ever hear is that terribly annoying, repetitive, like what must be a copyrightless song that they play over every entrance.
Not anymore. There's no more. They don't even have the entrances anymore from the last shows that I've watched. They just cut out the entrances. They just start the show the fights on the as they're announcing.
Well, now you can like play the music and a little bit minutes before and kind of try to imagine them coming in.
The one last thing.
I will say, environment-wise, the funniest story to me of Deep Jewels 36 was what are Oshima's children doing? Because it's very clear that she must be the one that handles the kids full time, because her husband was there with her kids and they were running wild. I mean, there was a moment where you saw like Kate Lotus was sitting in the front row, like one of the kids just ran up and climbed into her lap. The kid climbed into someone else's lap. They were just running all over everywhere. The dad was like super into the fight, so it's kind of funny. And I think during the Rin Nakai fight, one of them starts crying. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it on YouTube. And the dad had to pick her up and like run out of the arena because it was just like, Japanese crowds are super quiet. So it's like this weird atmosphere of Rin Nakai and this super serious fight and a baby screaming in the background.
Actually, I had a question. What is the makeup of the audience? Because at Rizin shows, I feel like there tends to be more females than males. For Deep Jewels, is it the same, or is it kind of more men are there, or is it kind of like 50-50?
Well, compared to an Invictus show, like an Invictus show is generally like 90% dudes.
Yeah.
And Deep Jewels is much more mixed. I'd say it's probably 60-40 or 65-35. The issue is, let's say this venue probably seats around 500 people that they were at, and the fighters all sell tickets. And so a lot of people there are bought fighter. They know the fighters. They bought tickets directly from them. I mean, there was a bunch of people there to support Saudi Oshima, and they look like family members, friends. So it's not random people that are there generally. It's people that know the people. So it's hard to get a more even balance of men and women.
I see. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting.
You know what? When it comes down to that, as far as Saori Oshima's kids are concerned, as long as they're not climbing into the cage and interrupting the action, like how douchebag that came into the Deji versus, I think, Jake Wasabi fight that happened over last weekend. Yeah, as long as they're not doing it, they're
it's one of those funny things where it's like, oh, you're a kid and you don't understand that like you're being held by Rena. Now you're being held by Miki Motono. Now you're being held by like all these famous fighters are holding you. Like these are just normal people that are my ride temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, we're both glad to see that you had fun at that show and that you enjoy things, but also
let me add one thing Rizin related. So I was outside. I was having some Starbucks. My wife wanted to go to the show. She hadn't been to a Deep Jewel show in a long time, and she's a big Sugiyama fan, so she wanted to go watch. And we're outside. We're just chilling. We got there a little early, and there was a Deep show in the morning. And the first thing that walks by is we're in this bench in a park, and the guy that does Mikuru Asakura's YouTube channel walks by. And she's like, oh, that's the guy that does Mikuru's YouTube channel. And then 5 minutes later, Mikuru Asakura walks by. And he looks like his outfit must have cost him $20,000. Like he looks like he's walking down an Italy, like an Italian like a runway. This guy looks like he was wearing this jacket that's like half jacket, half cape. He had like, this guy looked like a model walking down the street. And my wife was just like frozen. And like Mikuru Asakura just has this undeniable charisma when he walks by. I think everybody must have just stopped and turned when he walked by. I mean, he looked like his shoes cost $5,000. It was like a Ric Flair promo.
Woo!
Yeah. Well, that's cool that you got to see Mikuru in the flesh outside of a cage or ring. Obviously, I'm not surprised to hear at all what you just told us, that he's always aware of getting the spotlight on himself, no matter where it is.
Right, exactly. I was kind of surprised he went to the show, but I was kind of half expecting him to get in his white Ferrari and drive by afterwards.
So we will look out for those shows on the Deep MMA channel. But right now we're going to preview the Rizin 34 show this weekend, as my buddy Chris has told us, live on Fight Now. I assume not Fight Now, live now.
Live now. LIVENOW. Come on, man. Get your head out of your ass. I
assume that Damian Brown and Joe Ferraro, as far as I know, are going to be the commentators. I have no idea, but we'll wait and see. So quickly, we're going to talk about the most important fights. At first, the kickboxing fights. Just kidding. There's an absurd amount.
Yeah. We all know what the most important fight of the show is, and I think you, Andrew, already have talked about it a few times. And no, it's not the kickboxing fight. So why don't you go ahead and start us off with the main event?
Okay. Let's quickly just get rid of these kickboxing fights because there's an absurd amount that this show should be almost a kickboxing show rather than an MMA show. Quickly, Ryo Sato versus Shun, which is the opening fight I have here. It doesn't even have a number next to it, so this is prelim. Masaya Jaki versus Kota. Kota will be you. Yuma Yamahata versus Sho Ogawa. Jin Mandokuro versus Sayuto Sato, which is a rematch.
Jimon Dokuro is an exciting fighter, and he's a rising veteran, so this should be fun.
Here's the thing, you know that this fight actually already happened? It happened in Rizin 25 in Osaka. What? It was that show that had like all decisions, and the one where I think Hagiwara, I think that was the show where he stepped on the guy's face, or he almost tried to step on the guy's face. Remember that show? After he knocked him out?
I do. I think I do, because it's still available to watch with no commentary on Fight TV. But still, though, I think we both remember that show because it was right after Rizin 23 or 24 where we were doing the Twitch commentary.
And so it was that show that these two fought, and we're gonna have a rematch again because fans were calling for a rematch, of course. Yuki Kasahara versus Motoki, Yuya versus Yosuke Yamato, and then we have maybe the only two big kickboxing fights in the show: Taiga versus Ryo Takahashi, and Koji versus Genji Omeno. Rematch from the kickboxing tournament that they had last year that ended in a no contest headbutt. I'll let you guess who gave the headbutt. So, any thoughts on it?
I think the only fights that people are going to be interested in as far as the kickboxing is concerned is the Taiga fight and the Koji Tanaka versus King Genji Umeno fight, especially because of the fact that Genji still has, Koji still has a little bit of stroke. Genji still has power. So, people are still going to be interested in that.
Yeah. So, CJ, give us your obviously your extensive thoughts on all these kickboxing matches, which I'm sure you have a lot of.
Yeah.
Or you could just say, I don't give a shit. You could just.
I'm partially suffering from Koji fatigue, I feel like, where his antics at this point seem somewhat repetitive. Even though his last fight was really exciting, I think Koji's kind of like Clay Guida, in that he's exciting if you're beating the shit out of him. And if he's allowed to do what he wants to do, it's not as exciting. And so when he's fighting Yaman, who's just nonstop throwing heat, it was kind of exciting. And Yaman also is just like apparently willing to ignore the headbutts and not be fazed by them. I mean, did he give his opponent a catcher's mask for this fight?
Yeah, because he was saying that like
because they broke his nose in the first fight.
Yeah, and then he wore a mask at the press conference because he said he was too ashamed to like show his face. It was very cringe. It was not one of Koji's high
it's
points.
Like when Anderson Silva wore his mask for Vitor Belfort, but 10 times more cringy. Like I just wasn't into it. I thought it was funny back in the day when he was like ridiculing Tenshin, but his stuff with the green pepper wasn't that funny for Pimon, and stuff now is funny. But I mean, I imagine he still has his diehard Osaka fans. They put him on here to sell some tickets, so that makes sense. But I'm just not that super interested in it.
What I'm trying to say, CJ, is that Tiger Kawabe is kind of similar to what Kevin Hart here is in the States, trying too hard to be funny.
Yeah. Well, Taiga is popular because he has kind of a Taiga win, lose, or draw tends to have like a go out of my shield mentality where he loses people he's supposed to beat and he beats people he's supposed to lose to. So he's always exciting to watch. And
he has been better.
A lot of fans.
He has been better a lot lately. He's definitely not. It's not no more like how does Taiga lose in an embarrassing fashion anymore. Now he's kind of like a lot different. We've seen him a lot more aggressive. He's got more of whenever he enters ring now, he seems to have like he's just like stoic and like
Yeah.
I'm here to punish my opponent.
Are you saying that when his brother got beaten by Shibatar, that he kind of took over the embarrassing loss part of the family?
Possibly beaten, possibly in quotes. Who knows at this point? I mean, here's
Well,
the other question.
he did get his teeth knocked out.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I'd actually think that the tension knocking him down was probably more embarrassing than the Shibatar one, because you're talking about a guy who was like
Significantly
20,
smaller.
15, 20 pounds and was like just like destroying him on the feet.
Yeah.
Like, but for this fight, do you think this is kind of like a win or go home for Koji at this point, or not anymore? Because his Rizin, other than beating MMA fighter Kazuma Sone in a kickboxing fight, it hasn't been a successful run for him.
I don't know, because I feel like Japanese fans are a lot more forgiving than the US fans, where winning isn't necessarily as important in Japan as it is. It's just like the matter of how you're fighting. But it's like no secret that Koji isn't performing at a high level like he used to.
Jamie GM, thank you for joining us in chat, says that shoot boxing champion Yuki Kasahara might also be worth a watch. Here's the problem though. So here's these Osaka shows always seem to be cursed as like the longest, most like tedious shows, and I'm just so worried that these kickboxing matches are gonna like go
to decision.
I feel like even the MMA fights. Like I was looking back at some of the Osaka show cards from like last year and the year before, like everything just goes to decision. I have no idea why. I don't know if it's
Rising 25 was so boring. Like I feel bad. I think Jamie clearly knows more about the kickboxing than we do, so he keeps his finger on that pulse. But even he was jealous of Rising 35 having 3 title fights and Osaka getting none. Like to me, this Rising Osaka card is clearly like, hold on a little bit longer. The real Rising card is in April.
And it's so funny. Like you got 16 fights. The Live Now advertisement said 20 fights. So I'm not so sure if they were originally going to have 20 fights and they just cut it down to 16.
If they do add 20 fights, it'll probably be because the card is already posted. It'll probably be very snuck in, like very late notice that we probably don't even notice it until the time the fights actually happen.
CJ, how many? Let's take a bet. How many headbutts Koji gives to Genji?
He seems to throw them when he's frustrated. So to get. What if he went out there, he just threw one immediately just to mess with them?
he throws a headbutt and just walks out of the ring like that boxer, boxer did.
He just tries to psych him out immediately and throws one immediately. I think that'd be absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. And what do we think? Is Taiga? Do we get the new? Do we get Taiga 2.0 or do we get Taiga negative 2.0 in this?
I don't think Taiga 2.0 really exists. I mean, I think Taiga is the guy that we're going to forget is 25 years old because he's already fought more, taken more damage than a Nogueira over his career. So, I think it's hard to say. I mean, you never. That's the thing. That's the beauty of Taiga. You never know what you're going to get.
Oh yeah, and the thing is that even when he's losing, like it makes the fight more exciting, like the Taiju Shiratori fight, the first one. Because then if he can still connect with his overhand right that he always has to get in, it can send lights out to Takahashi.
His opponent got what? His last opponent's most recent fight is he got knocked out in the first round by Taiju.
Yes.
I mean, if that's any indication, Taiga should be better than this guy. But I mean, it's Taiga. Who knows?
And then Taiga beat Genji Umano in I think it was Rise sometime last year. So and then all the other kickboxers are like you could do like 3 degrees of separation with them, and they're all like connected in like some way. So, but
think of it, Jamie is speaking what we're all feeling. This is mostly, I mean, these kickboxing fights, with the exception of the main 2, are mostly deep kick and Who's Cup veterans. Rising 19 was the opposite. Every fight ended too quickly. led to multiple intermissions before the Fuji TV broadcast.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, we're not going to have Bellator kick around to produce that top level talent anymore. So we're going to have to go through stuff.
Let's just go ahead and pull one, because Bellator kickboxing has been dead for a long time. I don't even think they mentioned Denise Killholz as a champion for that anymore.
Well, I was just laughing when I saw that news story this week. Like, Scott Coker confirms Bellator kick is dead. I'm like, oh, did that need confirming? I didn't realize people were waiting to hear about that.
Every press conference I gone to, that's Bellator like post fight thing with Scott Coker, I can tell you that like that's always been asked, and he always gave like a non-committal answer. This is like the first time he's ever given like a actual yeah, it's gone.
Well,
he comes
from a kickboxing background, so it's clearly a passion of his.
But, yeah. I mean, obviously, if it wasn't for him, Strikeforce would have still been a kickboxing promotion.
Yeah.
So okay, we're done with that. Let's get into the actual meat of the card. And actually, funny enough, before like all the kickboxing fights are done, if you look closely at the fight order, they snuck in a little MMA fight that maybe some of you may not notice. It's a
yes. Third bout between Ryuki versus Ayumu Yamamoto, which is going to be
a nice palate cleanser.
Let me finish. The fight between Ryuki and Ayumu Yamamoto is going to be contested at 63 kilograms or 140 pounds, which is going to be sandwiched in between the first 3 kickboxing bouts and the second 3 kickboxing bouts.
But here's the funny thing as well. So Ryuki is a kickboxer who went into MMA, and Yamamoto is an MMA fighter who went to kickboxing. His last fight was a kickboxing match. So it's still kind of kickboxing tangentially related. And yeah, they're like, this is like one of those fights where I'm like, did they mean to put this on like a trigger show? Because this is like one in 3.
Gotta love a fight on a rising number card. I mean, this is just what I'm saying, where this is just like a placeholder for the event in April. It's like, oh, we got 2 guys coming off of losses at regional promotions. Hey, let's put them on a numbered. They're better than trigger worthy. Let's put them on a numbered card.
I'll say this: at least Yamamoto, he has a win over one of Mikuru's guys, Taisei. So at least that's kind of something. But I mean, like, I don't know. Do either of you have any thoughts on this sandwich fight? That's like been like placed to like remind you that this is also an MMA show.
To be honest, I don't, because when you think about it, it's. I mean, I get what they're trying to do here. They're getting people to get warmed up for the MMA fights that are going to be on the card, but this fight does nothing for me.
How about you, CJ? Anything?
I mean, the only thing that really sticks out to me is that
I think they're both
Ryuki has a win over Kan Nakamura in kickboxing. Kind of a big name to have a win over. But
his first kickboxing fight was in Rizin as well. Yeah. So he's coming back, but in the MMA sphere.
Just seems to me that they like, we got to get more MMA fights on this card. We don't care that these guys are coming off of losses. Put them on. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, well,
these Osaka shows, I feel bad for the Osaka fans. A lot of these Osaka shows seem to like, we'll put a famous couple of Osaka fighters in the main event and then just whatever happens underneath is whatever happens.
Yeah, it's almost like the fights that like they don't. It seems like they have to get a certain number of fights. This is gonna be on Fuji TV, I'm assuming, right?
I don't think so. I don't think
it's not.
It be on Fuji
not even
TV.
on tape. Not even tape delay.
I mean, my impression. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen anything, but my impression, Fuji TV is like. Is Horiguchi going to be on the card? Is one of the Asakura brothers going to be on the card? Is Rena going to be on the card? I don't see any of the guys on this moving Fuji TV.
Oh, the other thing I got to mention. So this is, while this show is called Rise.
I may be wrong though, but that's just my impression. Okay. Yeah, I don't think, plus Hagiwara is covered in tattoos. I doubt Fuji TV likes that.
Oh, good point. Forgot about that. The full title of the show is not Rise 34, but it's SBC Shonen Beauty Clinic presents Rise 34. And I find it baffling if it's a beauty clinic that there's no women that are on the card.
Well, it's kind of like a weird, it's like they do like surgeries and stuff too. They have a bunch of branches. So
it's perfect for them. It's perfect for a fucking
Yeah.
show. Oh, you get your nose broken? Come to the Shonen Booty Critic. We'll reset your nose or your arm or your
Yeah.
eye.
Let me see. I'm going to the Rising website. I mean, it looks like this is going to be on pay-per-view.
Oh, okay.
It is. It's gonna be probably
Yeah.
on Exciting Rising Live, and all
Yeah, it's
those.
on pay-per-view. I mean, the first thing when you said Fuji TV, I was like, this doesn't seem like a card that Fuji TV would touch with a 10-foot pole.
I mean, kind of think of it, when it comes down to all the fighters on the card, they probably won't even move the Fuji TV needle.
Well, yeah,
Especially when you got one guy covered in tats and has a smoke habit.
Yes.
Fuji TV wants a superstar on a card to do it on their platform. And by superstar, they mean Asakura Brothers.
Oh,
they mean.
I thought you were gonna say Daisuke Nakamura.
Well, that would be awesome. But yeah, none of these guys are going to get attention from Fuji TV.
Jamie has a funny comment. He said, "This is not going to be on Fuji TV. This would bomb."
I mean, yeah, unfortunately, I mean, Hagiwara is the most famous guy on this card, probably. I mean, Koji's popular in Osaka, but none of these guys are going to be big pay. I don't expect this card to even do that good of pay-per-view numbers, to be honest.
I see. Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to know I think
this card is like the end of quarantine rising fatigue. It's like we have no foreign fighters. We have a bunch of fighters on this card that literally fought a month ago. We're making them fight again because we don't have enough fighters to do the number of events that we want to do.
I mean, come to think of it, CJ, you're right. Yeah. And not just because of the fact that you actually live in Japan and actually are witnessing this shit. It's because of the fact that when it comes down to it, yes, this is going to be the end of rising quarantine fatigue because they rarely had any foreign fighters on these cards over the last.
Knock on wood. Knock on wood, though. Let's hope nothing screws it up.
Let's hope nothing screws things up.
This is definitely like a live show for the Osaka crowd. This is definitely this is clearly to sell tickets more than to sell, I think, pay-per-views. That's just like a little extra financial whatever for Rizin, but it's clearly there. I think it's more of a live Osaka Kansai show for that audience. So yeah,
and then you get you have Akira and Daisuke Nakamura on this card. They both fought like a month ago.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, they're both the true. Well, Nakamura is the true star, the uncrowned champion, who we'll talk about later. Yes. What we're gonna go through? There's 3 flyweight bouts that I think are very interesting. And I'm gonna read those off right now. On the main card, there'll be Daichi Kitakata, Yutaro Muramoto. Both Rizin have fought on Rizin before. Kitakata is the strawweight Pancrase strawweight champion. Muramoto also a strawweight fighter, both going up in weight. We got returning.
I think you meant to say strawweight king of Pancrase champion.
I forgot the king, king of Pancrase, strawweight champion. Yep. Tatsuki Sawamoto returning, taking on Yuto Uda, and Ryuya Fukuda taking on Nave, and that's with a capital N and a capital E at the end. Make sure you all get that correct when you write your results. It's not Nave with a lowercase e at the end. So CJ, you got any thoughts on these 3 flyweight matches? I think Rizin's trying to cook up something for the flyweight division.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have Daichi coming back, and I mean, he hasn't been the most active fighter. This will be his first fighter of the year, but he did come back in 2021 and win in Pancrase. So I mean, he's been around for a long time, so he's a veteran. He's got a winning record. Maybe they bring him in just to see what he can do. Makes sense. He's from Osaka. Maybe he can sell some tickets. And then I'm more interested in Muramoto in this fight just because he's been more active recently. Actually, less. I think he's been less active recently, but he's on my radar just because of the Seigo Yamamoto fight, where Seigo Yamamoto was like, "Oh, I'm going to throw a bunch of flying knees and eventually eat a punch and get knocked out because throwing 3 flying knees in a row is always a good idea.
So I'm going to. So I got to also say, and for the Fukuda Nave fight, Fukuda's Tapology picture is incredibly outdated. If you go to it, he looks like a 12-year-old boy who's like just in like primary school, whatever. This is a complete opposite. He looks nothing like that now. He's got a goatee. He's got a big tattoo on his chest. So this is one of those. I don't know what's going on in his life, but he looks like a bartender at like some like dingy Shinjuku.
Oh, don't put that curse on. Don't put that knee curse on him.
But he recently got a win at Deep over Yuta Ito, who was another Rizin regular.
Yeah.
Or I should say, Rizin veteran. Nave is a very interesting fighter, gladiator champion from the esteemed promotion of Gladiator, which I think is an Osaka promotion. He had a very interesting comment that I would like to read. Actually, but while I search for that, Chris, what do you think about Tatsuki Sawamoto making his return? He had that very close fight at Trigger last year. Now he's taking on a 5-0 potential flyweight prospect in Yuto Uda.
Well, when it comes down to Tatsuki Sawamoto, the former Zest star, I mean, I think he's going to probably do well against Yuta Uda. As far as the reunion, and I'm sorry because of the fucking background noise in my end, but still, when it comes down to the Ryuya Fukuda, and I know I'm going to get shit canned for dead naming this guy, Masaaki Watanabe, aka Nave, fight, I really think it's going to be a weird mix of styles that I'm just going to have no interest in actually picking a side to who's going to win. But I think that Nave, aka Watanabe, and Fukuda is going to have a fun fight. But I am going to look forward to the Tatsuki versus Uda fight.
And so here are the comments. Well, here's what Sawamoto said. My opponent is young and fearless. I plan to beat him and earn a spot on the GP that will most likely happen soon. Whatever. Here's what Yuto Uda said. Rizin's flyweight division sucks, and I'm here to change that. My opponent is boring as fuck, and I will humiliate him to prove points. I'm here to become Rizin's new star in flyweights.
Put him on a landmark show now. That's the kind of guy that I want on my landmark shows.
Listen, it takes balls and just like that type. I love that energy. That's like Kyoei Hagiwara energy. Like
that's what's exciting about this. This fight is one of the rare fights where it's like, oh, both these guys, it's kind of like a collision course. I mean, one's undefeated and one hasn't lost in a very long time. So it's kind of interesting to see who will win.
Let's be this about the Kitakata versus Muramoto fight.
No, Sawamoto.
No. Sawamoto Uda.
Right. Well, hey, let's just face facts. If Sawamoto thinks the division is boring and he's here to clean it up, why not have him face off against the winner of the Kitakata versus Muramoto?
Well, no, Uda thinks it's boring.
So Uda Uda. Right.
I mean, Sawamoto's beaten the bigger names, and he's a rising veteran now, but Uda's never been beaten, so who's to see what his potential is?
Well, here's the thing. Again, if Uda wins this fight against Sawamoto, let's have him face off against the winner of Kitakata versus Muramoto. Let's see let's see if Yuta Udo's theory about the Rizin flyweight division being boring, pales in comparison to the fact of him facing domestic talent before all the foreign fighters get in and kick his ass for real.
Well, he does have a point. Bantamweight has Horiguchi in quotes, I'll say, Asakura, Ogikubo. In a way, fighters who have some level of stardom, and then featherweight obviously has Mikuru, and then Yutaka Saito. There's nobody there for flyweight. Listen, you
forgot Daisuke.
Oh, my apologies for my from for my heretic comment. Yes, Daisuke Nakamura as well.
Yes.
But
Thank you.
but flyweight, remember the number one flyweight, or the one that was said by the number one flyweight in Japan, Tetsuya Taira, is now in UFC. And so I
Right.
think this is Rizin's attempt to find their Taira, since he's now going to UFC. And so I think that I don't know if it could be a Yamamoto. I don't know if it could be Uda. Uda's from Shujo as well. So
But-
yeah, you know that.
I mean, it's clear that Uda hasn't faced the same level of competition as Sawamoto.
Oh yeah, and I watched one of his fights, and he got taken down pretty easily. The one that went to a draw, he got taken down. And if he doesn't realize that Sawamoto is going to do that in their fight, then he's in for 3 long rounds. I'm sorry, CJ, go ahead.
And then, I mean, Sawamoto, I mean, the guy is kind of a shell of who he used to be, but he did knock out Nakamura in the first round. And Yusaku Nakamura, I mean, he's got a lot of foreign fights, still moves well. He just can't take the punches well. But I mean, that's a big name.
And I want to read the comments by Nave with a capital E. This is actually a really cool thing that he said. I'm the second professional MMA fighter coming out of my prefecture, the Mie prefecture, which I have no idea where that is. Do you know where that is, CJ? Mie?
Isn't it
I've heard of it. If I find it on a map.
I don't even know. I have no idea what Kansai or like wherever region it is. But says the second professional MMA fighter coming out of that prefecture. He's grateful for the opportunity. When I first started
it looks
in MMA,
like it's in between Osaka and Nagoya.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
It's in Kansai.
Oh, okay.
So it's in Kansai.
There was not a single MMA gym in my region. I started training at a local park, and now I have my own gym, and I'm fighting a Rizin. I really want my people to know that there is a guy from the same city trying to make a living through this sport. I hope to be known and bring some help and help out our community.
Who said
Isn't that
this?
pretty cool? Nave.
Okay.
Yeah, listen. I
It's a cool comment, but we'll see how far his park training takes him in Rizin.
Listen, I always tend to lean towards the fighters who dare to get tattoos on them in Fukuda. But listen, this is too wholesome of a story, with Nave. I hope this guy wins. I think he might be mixed Japanese as well. He does not look full Japanese, I'm guessing. I was also trying to think where he got his name from, and I am 100% convinced he might have seen the movie Avatar and gave his maybe misspelled it though, because Navi is with N-A-V-I. But since I don't think there's really any, you don't spell names like that in Japanese with like that style. It would be like with a hyphen, translated. That's the one I can't think of, because there's no words in Japanese that would be close to Nave. It would be Nabe, which is food. I can't believe that like he would nickname himself after Chanko Nabe.
I mean, why wouldn't you? But I have no idea where he got that from.
Let alone why the E is capital out of, if he's just doing that to make his name distinct. But it will be a striker versus grappler fight, which Fukuda being the striker, Nave being the grappler. I think it'll be a good fight. I'll think it'll be a good fight. Any thoughts on Kitakata Muramoto from either one of you? CJ, after you.
Which one? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, Kitakata and Muramoto.
I mean, Kitakata's got to be the favorite going into this, right? That's my general impression. I don't know. It's just one of these fights where does the win over Seigo Yamamoto really tell us that much? I mean, the guy just went for a bunch of flying knees and got caught Andrei Arlovsky style.
And also, these are two strawweight fighters going up. These are not regular flyweight fighters.
That's right. Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't have a lot to say about this. It just looks like the Rising maybe trying to get some feelers for the tournament. But I mean, if they can get international talent in, maybe these are just backups in case they can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the real bread and butter.
Talent in. They need that influx of flyweight talent from overseas in order to make this thing relevant. But as far as Nave's story is concerned, going back to the Fukuda Watanabe fight. I do think it is kind of crazy for Masaaki Watanabe, aka Nave, to come out of the Mie Prefecture, which is sandwiched in between Nagoya, Kyoto, and Osaka, just to, show some pride in his people, show some pride in his little small island region of a country that's supposed to resemble an island all to its own, and just, make some noise. So now I actually got a choice in this fight between Nave and Fukuda, and it's going to be Nave. But as far as the Kita Kato and Muramoto fight, Uda did say that this division is boring. I think this fight is going to be anything but. I mean, I think this is going to be two guys looking to scrap the shit out of each other and looking to go blow for blow against each other. And I really don't know who's going to win. All I just know is going to be a damn dog fight before the final bell is rang.
Well, here's the other thing that Uda needs to do. Listen, if he comes to this fight, he fights a boring fight, he'll forever be on my MMA shit list of like fighters who I don't want to see. So if he's gonna say strong words, he's gotta back him up. He's gotta do like a Hagiwara and kind of just like actually like go in there and like try to just fuck shit up. As
think of it, if you're saying that he's gonna be on your MMA shit list, like how low will he be compared to the Mongolians?
Mongolians are just, they're on a different level of like, I don't want to see them. This will be like, okay, you said you're gonna, it's like, it's like whenever you have like two fighters who hate each other or something, like Covington and Masvidal, and then suddenly it's like, oh, we're gonna hug for 5 rounds. I'm gonna hold you down for 5 rounds. It's not gonna, something like that. Just like some unexciting fight because, whatever. That's the worst type when there's so much shit talking and then there's just like, oh, we're gonna stare at each other for like 3 or 5 rounds. But here's the one thing about Nave that has me worried. He does have a loss to Kazuma Sone. That's never a good sign. So maybe hopefully
find what his nickname means, but he is half Russian, it looks like. So you are right in that regard.
Is Nave a Russian word? I wonder if that's a Russian word and maybe he just borrowed it for his nickname.
Well, it looks like his gym is called In Trust, so maybe he just likes the letter N.
Oh, okay. That doesn't explain why the E is capitalized though. It's just like, imagine just like, you're writing like for Gong or E-Fight. Every time you write that name, you gotta go to the English part of your keyboard and capital N, AV, capital E, capital N. It's gotta be like so annoying. I know you talked about that, CJ.
It's better than writing Nori when I gotta get my Nordic keyboard ready.
Or TA.
Yeah. We gotta copy and paste a star emoji for half the names now.
Moving on, I think this will be a great fight and like talk about like blast from the past. Alan Hiro Yamaniha, Banzai Gym representative, take on Motonobu Tezuka, former UFC fighter. Tezuka.
Oh yeah, UFC fighter, current Grachan fighter, Motonobu Tezuka.
Grachan flyweight champion who beat Kuya Ito to get the belt. Also is a guy who broke Full Swing's arm in that Shuto fight when he suplexed him, which I didn't know until I was researching Tezuka. But what do you think about this fight, CJ? This fight can be like, and also I forgot to say about this is a rematch from like many years ago when I think it was Heat, and Tezuka just tapped out Yamaniha in about a little over a minute in the first round.
Well, this is one of those fights where like you have to explain to people that like, yeah, Yamaniha trains at Bonsai Jiu-Jitsu, but he's not a jiu-jitsu fighter.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, it seems like as they went down their roster, it became like, it's like when Vitor Belfort was going under like Vitor Gracie back in the day and was brutally knocking people out and saying that it was Brazilian jiu-jitsu. But Yamaniha is a brawler who has a great chin, and I don't expect him to kind of change that style anytime soon. Where his opponent Yeah, I mean, grappler, kind of interesting, right? You got to
Well,
think
here's
that Yamaniha's got good sparring partners to prepare him for that, but both of them are kind of coming. I mean, aside from Yamaniha's recent loss, both of them are
Mhm,
kind of on hot streaks. So kind of interesting to see
mhm.
what happens.
I mean, does Yamaniha still have that chin after that fight with Kuramoto? I mean, he took some.
Yeah,
I mean, like, listen, there's some fights that change fighters, and I don't know.
yeah.
Is that, I don't want. I'm not gonna discount Kai's uh boxing stand up, but like, it is not on the same level of power as like Kuramoto's, and I don't think he got hit as much in that fight that he as opposed to the
Well,
yeah,
the Kai fight
Yamaniha
was
fight.
weird, right? Because the Kai fight always answered the question that I liked, which was, what is Asakura going to do when he fights someone that doesn't go down? And that's what kind of happened in the Yamaniha fight, is that Kai was able to hit him, but Yamaniha wasn't going anywhere. But you're
Mhm.
right. After that Kai performance and the Kuramoto, I mean, he's taken a ton of damage in his past two fights. You got to wonder if that's affected him at all.
Um,
And I haven't been. I mean, he really hasn't showed off any of his grappling. And when it goes to the ground, I'm not that super impressed with it. But you got to think he's been able to work on some sort of defense going into this fight, right?
I would hope so. I mean, you lost the first fight. I hope he's like, oh yeah, I don't want the same thing to happen in that fight to happen in this second outing. Um,
Do you think this is
Chris,
a fight that Yamaniha asked for, or do you think they just saw that they had fought before and thought it'd be a good matchup?
that's interesting. I'm trying. I don't think like would if you think Sakakibara would be like, or Shingo would be like, Yamaniya, is there anybody who you want to fight for your next fight? Hmm.
Well, I mean, Yamaniha is probably the name that they're more interested in just because of his bonsai gym connections.
But I think wouldn't you Tezuka, I figure, he might want the rematch with Kuramoto. No, not the oh no, I forgot the Kuramoto won that. I would figure that he'd want to ask for Kai, if anything. I mean, probably
True.
Kai would say no. So
Yeah.
I guess it's possible. It does. I am a little bit. I'm kind of surprised though that Tezuka took this long to get the Rising, because usually what happens is that the trajectory is that when you leave UFC, you go to whatever Japanese promotion, Pancrase, Shuto, whatever. You win a few fights, get a championship, then you come to Rising. It's usually like an open door. So I'm surprised
Yeah.
it took this long for Tezuka. Um, Jay Krish,
Did
how's
he
it
ever
feeling?
fight? Did he fight for the UFC?
Yeah, he had a few
He
fights.
fought for the UFC twice
Oh,
around
back in
2012.
2012 and 13. I see.
Mm-hmm. But here's the
Uh,
thing: when it comes down to Tezuka compared to Yamaniha, since their first meeting, Tezuka has gone 14-5-2 since that win he had over Yamaniha back at Heat 33 in September of 2014. Yamaniha has gone 9-4, despite the fact that Yamaniha has gone international as well and tried to get signed with the UFC, tried to fight the late great kid Yamamoto, and obviously did not get the opportunity. But still, though, records aside, how do you think this fight's going to differ from the first one? Even though, I mean, aside from the obvious that this fight, this first fight wasn't seen by anybody.
yeah. There's
Um,
not even video of it. I'm sorry, CJ, go ahead.
it's kind of crazy that Tezuka's got that many fights and he's only 34 years old. He's got like close to 50 fights. But no, but I mean, I was just looking over his record a little bit. What, Tezuka's been knocked out one time his entire career. And
Yeah,
so I mean, that's
and he
Yamaniha's
subbed
route to win this fight. So
and
if
he
Yamaniha
subbed
can't
multiple
knock him
times.
out or hurt him, he's gonna be in trouble, I think.
Mm-hmm. And also the question is, will Yamaniha's chin? I know he's not a knockout. That Tezuka's not a knockout artist, but like, if
Yeah.
that, if listen, if that fight was like that Kuramoto fight of Yamaniha, like, it would not surprise me if like his chin at like 30% of his chin is gone, because you like
Yeah.
that was a brutal fight for both of them. That really was.
Yeah, you never know. And you can't take that kind of damage for a long time or else you're gonna turn into what, Robbie Lawler eventually. So
I always point to Chuck Liddell. I
yeah.
always like Chuck Liddell was like the guy, like, you know, could take
Yeah,
so
I
many
used
punches at
Robbie
one point.
Lawler though, because Robbie Lawler had those title defenses. Like every single one of them seemed like a war. It was like,
Mhm.
oh, Rory McDonald, Johnny Hendricks, Carlos Condit. I mean, all three of those fights were just insane. And it's like, yeah, this can't go on forever. But Chuck Liddell's
Uh,
also a great example because once his chin failed, it just never recovered.
oh yeah, yeah. And there were, at one point you
The Rich
couldn't.
Franklin knockout was especially embarrassing.
Oh yeah, I was actually in a movie theater for that. When I saw that, and like the audience was like, they couldn't believe that like Rich Franklin with a broken arm
Yeah,
knocked out. I think he even knocked him out with a broken arm. I
he
think that was
did.
the whole.
He did.
And I think it was originally supposed to be somebody else. It wasn't supposed to be Rich Franklin in that fight. I think it was supposed to be Chuck Liddell versus. What was it supposed to be? I don't think that was the original fight, as far as I remember. But yeah, I was in a movie theater for that, and like audience was like stone cold quiet, like couldn't believe that Chuck Liddell had just been knocked out by Rich Franklin of all people.
Yeah.
Curious to know, does anybody have a pick? I'm curious to know if you have a definitive DraftKings pick. CJ?
No, let's not draft to this. We all know they don't care about anything other than filling the UFC, AEW, and the WWE's pocketbooks, respectively. But yeah, if
I'll pick
I
Tezuka.
if I were to say who's really gonna win this, I would definitely pick Yamamoto because wouldn't he be the overall favorite going into this fight? Because of the fact that he's been, aside from losing to Kaya Sakura, on a tear recently, like 4-1 in his last 5.
I think so. No, that's not unreasonable. I think Tezuka is about six, is on a 6 or 7 fight winning
I'm going to
streak.
pick Tezuka. I mean, Tezuka's beat him before.
Mm-hmm.
He's only been knocked out once, which is what Yamaniha likes to do to people. And I think Yamaniha took a ton of damage in his past 2 fights, kind of like what Andrew was saying. So I'm going to favor Tezuka.
Oh yeah, I same.
Understood, and you can also say to the fact that Tezuka, albeit on a 6-fight win streak, he also, albeit via injury, defeated Oi Full Swing, Mamoru Oi Full Swing, defeated Jun Doi, who also fought on a Rising card before, and defeated Kuya Ito, who's going to be on this. No, wait, actually, who was on the most recent Rising card, Rising Landmark, right?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, he's defeated a number of established MMA fighters. And yeah, I have to go with Tezuka. I think CJ also, I question a Yamania's chin, especially after the 2 fights with Kai and Kuramoto. Plus, he already beat him again. So I mean, if DraftKings were making odds, probably they'd be in Tezuka's favor. It's still a compelling fight, though. I'm still interested to see how it goes. Who knows? Maybe we'll see Yamaniha throwing a flying triangle or something, and just totally like win like that way. Or you know what? I'm sorry, I forgot. It's an Osaka card, so it's going to go to decision, of course. CJ's like, oh god, he's not looking forward to. He's not looking forward to this. One fight that I hope does not go to a decision. I don't think it will. We got Jiri Ohara versus Akira from the Cave Gym. Akira fought, the Rizin Trigger too last month, barely a month ago, defeating Takumi Suzuki. And Ohara, as we know, knocked out Kohei Tokeshi and went to that really awesome fight with Yusuke Yachi split decision. Any thoughts on this fight, CJ?
I mean, they're both kind of hot right now. Rising's been promoting Akira quite a bit, kind of in a weird way. Yeah, like it's like Gomi / too shy to talk character he's got going with his little T-Rex arms. But Jiri Ohara's been a savage recently, and he's been brutally knocking people out. I mean, I wake up screaming sometimes about what he did to Kitaoka. So Ohara, I mean, what does his record look like? I mean, Ohara's really been on a tear recently, hasn't he? I mean, if you're not the other, who's the deep guy he fought 3 times or 4 times?
Takeda, Koji Takeda.
I mean, if you're not Takeda, he seems to be able to beat you. It's the story of his recent career. Yeah, I mean, like he's on a 6-fight win streak. He's come with one knockout by up kicks, one by stomps, and one by GMP. So he's been looking really good recently, and I think he's found his groove. And I'm all on the Ohara train right now.
Interesting. Jay Krish, your thoughts on Ohara and Akira?
When it comes down to the Jiri Ohara versus Akira the Gorilla Okada fight, I think that it's like you said, Akira has been on a big tear recently, and you would probably have to think that he would come in as the favorite in this fight as well. But if you think about Ohara, when's the last time he fought on a Rizin card?
Ohara fought
Back when he beat last November.
Right. So he's going to probably be coming back into Rizin competition with a bit of ring rust, so to speak.
or ring. Oh yeah,
I
ring
do
rust.
think that when it comes down to this fight, that Akira the Gorilla Okada will take advantage of this mistake and surely get the win via finish, preferably in the first couple of rounds.
Here's the other I thought of. So I rewatched the Akira Daichi Abe fight that was in Rizin, and Abe. There were times where he had Akira rock. So listen, Jiri Ohara I think, is a much better striker than Abe. And listen, Ohara, if he connects with any of his stand up, man, that could be over for you. No matter how much of a gorilla you are. I mean, here's the thing: if he tries to hit Akira in the body, probably won't do anything. But listen, what's the rule number one rule in Zombieland? What was it? Aim for the head? Was that one of the rules? Yeah.
Double tap.
Double tap. And listen, Ohara can, if he double taps Akira, it's gonna be lights out for the gorilla.
Well,
CJ, yeah.
My thoughts about this fight. I'm excited for this fight because both these guys are savages, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, both these guys know how to finish somebody when they have them hurt, which is always an exciting fight to watch. But my one primary concern for Akita is outside of like Chris Lieben in 2010, these quick turnarounds never really ended that well, in my opinion. I mean, you got to cut weight again. You have zero time to prep for your opponent. You're probably spending all of your time just getting back into shape, and you probably have some damage from your earlier fight with zero recovery time. I mean, it's like the Rising New Year's Eve card all over again. Like, let's get Rena off the operating table and cart her down there with a still opened wound on her head, and get all these fighters with broken hands down there and see what happens.
That's a good point. I mean, well, here's the thing: he didn't take a lot of damage in the Suzuki fights. He mostly controlled it for the most part, and Suzuki is the one who came out much more damaged than Akira did. So I guess, I would say the damage he incurred probably is not. The weight cut is a good point. The weight cut is a good point. Especially if he's eating all those bananas.
Plus, there's no time to prepare. You're just immediately you're cutting weight again.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good point. Jay Krish, what do you think about that quick turnaround? I know you said that Ohara, might have some ring rust, but do you think that Akira is, the fact that he already just had a fight, that could be a disadvantage?
I mean, what you're basically saying is that Akira Okada might be worn out.
No, I'm saying, well, I mean, yeah, that he might be worn out. Listen, we don't know what damage he sustained. I assume it's not a lot of damage, at least visually, but it can still, listen, a quick turnaround fight like that it may not, cutting weight, I'm assuming he's like maybe 170 or whatever. He's got to cut 20, 25 pounds, whatever, 15. Yeah, just making that quick turnaround, it's not like it's gonna hurt him more than it would Jiri Ohara, who's had some time between when he last fought.
I mean, come to think of it, considering how quick of a turnaround that is, he probably might not have gotten all the weight he wanted back. I mean, he probably might be 10 or 15 pounds heavier compared to his last fight.
Yeah, and I was just thinking too, like, just think of the training. Like, was he able to do any sparring for this fight? Or because it's such a quick turnaround, is it just, get back in the gym, work on some drills, but we don't want to risk you getting injured by sparring so close to the fight. So, I mean, outside of that last fight, how much good training has he actually had?
Akira did say during the press conference that he was very disappointed with how the last fight went. So I wonder if he did maybe ask Sakakibara or Shingo, whoever, hey, listen, can you put me on the next show? I want to get a better fight result. You know, if I that do you
My
think
theory is that his name has some heat recently because they've been promoting him, and this card needed some heat. It needed something for the Rising Confession video to include, so they put him on it.
I mean, this is also an Osaka show, so this will probably go to a split majority decision, with Jiri Ohara laying on top of Akira the entire time. So just be aware that might happen. Actually, you've seen those videos that Akira does for Cave, where they each take turns hitting him in the body. CJ,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're fucking hilarious. They're what's even more funny is when, like, I think it was Ishitari was like, they were showing the difference between what happens when you do it to him versus Akira. And Ishitari was like really, really scared. He was like flinching.
And didn't they have the Asakura brothers? Haven't they had pretty big, like, strong people hit him in the stomach?
They had Ken Hasagawa. Then they brought in Ren Hiramoto.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really. It's really, really funny videos. So pick. What do you think? How do you think this fight will go, CJ?
I'm going Ohara.
Ohara, nice. I'm thinking this thing.
Ohara via stomps.
Okay.
You're thinking the superior Rizin rule set. Good for you.
How about you,
I think that this fight won't be boring.
Yeah.
But I do see that Ohara will win this fight because there's no way that, especially in MMA, there's no way you can come back off a quick turnaround as a competitor weighing in at 157 pounds, trying to fight off of about 2 or 3 weeks notice after your last fight and then come back and win. There's just no way, even though that has been done in weight classes lower than lightweight and higher than lightweight before.
Yeah, I have to go with the same with Ohara on this. Yeah, and listen, like I said, Ohara hits you. It's you better get out of the way. We saw what happened in the Yachi fights. Because if you don't get knocked out or rocked, you also will get cut as well. That's the other thing, is that I don't think I've ever seen an Ohara fight that's not like a Ric Flair blood gusher or something. It's like every fight of his is like it's like Diego Sanchez. Like every fight is just bloody by like minute one.
I would hate to see him ever go abroad because his fight style is so geared towards the Japanese rules of just like, oh, I'm going to stun you and brutally soccer kick you on the ground. I just absolutely love it.
I mean, let's face it, if he were to come over here, if he were to come over here to the United States specifically, let's just play a game on how many minutes will it take for the fight to be stopped, because he probably wouldn't last long under, the unified rules.
Oh yeah, no, it'd be like already 30 seconds in, soccer kick disqualification. And we'll have like an Anderson Silva, Yushin Okami controversy. I didn't know the rules. I thought I could kick him when he was down. The
best example of that to me is always the greatest soccer kick for that example is when Andrei Arlovsky soccer kicked Tim Sylvia without permission and won championship.
Yeah.
And even said so before the fight, like, I'm not going to wait for permission. If I get the chance, I'm just going to do it. And then he did it, lost by disqualification, and nobody cared because it was an epic end to their. How many times did they end up fighting? 4 or 5 times?
Oh God, must have been. at least more than 3.
Like after that soccer kick, you could tell they genuinely hated each other. And Andre Arlovski's probably like, "Congrats on the win, buddy. Enjoy eating out of a straw for the next 2 months."
I'll just say this though: if you want to see a great show, and the name did not wind up cursing the show, the one Lights Out show from this past weekend was actually great, and it actually wound up being Lights Out since 7 of the 9 fights wound up being knockouts. So
it didn't follow the UFC knockout curse.
Nope, luckily it didn't. Luckily it did. It is a great show with some really violent finishes. So check that out.
I have a question. Speaking of the naming of events, have you seen the news for this new Japanese event called Pound Storm?
I heard about that.
That name just sounds rough to me. It sounds like this sounds like it's not an MMA event.
Yes. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I don't know. Is that like a Shuto show? That's supposed to be a Shuto show, right? Or some other?
What's that LHD, the Dreamers show on Abema TV?
Oh, okay. Yeah. If anybody's going to tune into Pound Storm, if you're in the chat, let us know if you're going to be brave enough to do that.
Just to be sure, it is an MMA fight. Like, don't go in there with different expectations.
I wonder if that's one of those things where like the company was like, "Oh, this is cool because it's in English." Pound.
No, that's exactly what it is. That's 100% what it is.
And yeah, they don't understand the nuance. I always like stuff like that. We're like, we're like, it's always funny when like they names are given and then it's clearly English or like misunderstood English. I always
Pound Storm's what they used to call me back in college or something. It doesn't sound like the name of a fight promotion.
But still, Andrew, you're gonna have to send me a DM about that Lights Out show that you watched over the weekend. And speaking
oh no, I saw the results. I was following the results on r/MMA just because like it was on at like 7 a.m. because of the Singapore whatever. So like I'll just keep up with the results in like real time. But a cool finish.
But speaking of fights that we know will provide lights out action, we got to talk about the lone unicorn fight of this card, the welterweight division in Rizin, Kichi Strasa Kunimoto versus Daichi Abe. Let's talk about it.
Yes, CJ, what do you think? The unicorn on this card, 2 of the 5 fighters in Japan who are welterweights meeting.
Well, I mean, Strasa being on this card makes sense. I mean, he's from Osaka. For some reason, I have seared in my mind an old UFC promotion video where he walked around the rough streets of Osaka where he was from. But yeah, I mean, he looked good in his last fight on the Trigger show, and he made a lot of appeals to get back on Rising ever since he fought there, in like 17 and 18, but then he wasn't there for a while. So he had his little Twitter campaign to get back. And it's fairly rare. That usually doesn't work, but it worked this time. Probably because, as you said, they don't have any fighters in the division in Japan, and he has a name.
Well, I mean, that's why he had to go to Bellator and have that firefight with Easy Dead Ed Root.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised, though. So there's another fighter, if you remember from the Trigger show, Yusaku Kinoshita, who got DQ'd because he grabbed the cage while stomping the shit out of his opponent. He's also from Osaka.
Yeah. Well, I'm
surprised they didn't put him on the show.
You grab the cage, you brutally kick the same guy in the dick a month before. Like, I wouldn't want to fight him.
I mean, it's funny that I'm just surprised that they didn't bring back Kinoshita because he's young. They need, I think they need more diverse amounts of people for their welterweight division, if you even want to call it division. So I'm just surprised that they didn't bring him back because he's just not like, it's like, okay, welterweight comes down to like Kichi, Abe, Akira Okada when he decides to fight welterweight whenever he does, and Kinoshita. It's like those are like the only good fighters at welterweight.
Yeah, you got to wonder like if Deep wants to use him again, and that's why he's down there. He has to go fight for Deep again. Or, I mean, it doesn't have any name value, and Strasser has a lot of name value. So maybe it just makes more sense for them to put him on there.
Yeah, you could put him in on the prelim, right before,
I mean,
Tiger.
remove one of the 8 kickboxing matches.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's not an MMA show if you don't have 8 kickboxing matches.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Do you think, CJ, that they're gonna bring in more welterweights once they can actually definitively bring more foreigners in? Do you see that being a focus on Rizin?
Maybe, but to warrant it, they need a Japanese star to build it behind, and they don't have that at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, any division in Japan ever, they need like a star to build it behind. And then they'll bring the foreign talent in to help build that star up.
So what you're saying is they need to coax Shinya Aoki to come back to Rizin.
Well, I'm actually pretty interested in his upcoming fight with Akiyama. I think that Aoki's about to get murdered. So I don't know if he'll be ready to fight in Rising in the near future.
Oh, yeah, of course he will once ONE FC forces his ass out.
I mean,
here's
Akiyama is significantly bigger than Aoki, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Aoki's strength is his grappling background in judo. How is he going to get a Olympic gold medalist judoka down with his judo?
Well, here's the thing I learned watching, with Michihiro Omigawa retiring. Mm-hmm. I looked back at some of the fights. I'm like, this is a judo guy. He never uses his judo. It's kind of like Yoel Romero never uses his wrestling. And yet,
kind of like Dan Henderson. They're always like, he was an Olympic alternate. I'm like, I haven't seen Dan Henderson go for a takedown in 10 years.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like, I'm not. Did they deliberate like? It's like, oh, I want to be an MMA fighter. I just want to be a judo guy, so I'm not going to use any of that. Akiyama was a little bit different. He did use his judo more often, but like,
yeah.
I mean,
well, I'd say judo's harder to use than wrestling.
Oh yes, oh yeah.
If you don't have the gi to grab onto, but I mean, I think that Akiyama is just going to knock Aoki out. I mean, Aoki can get TKO'd and knocked out, and Akiyama is going to be massive compared to him.
Well, the big question is, how much grease will Akiyama have on him for this fight?
What was that thing that those Jackson fighters used to do where they would like take baths in lotion?
Yes. Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Wasn't that the Paul Harris fight where Paul Harris got knocked out mid-complaint?
I think so. Yeah. Who was it that he fought?
Was that Nate Marquardt?
I think it may have been. I think it may have been Nate.
He was like complaining about his leg, and Nate just leaned over and knocked him out.
Yeah.
One of Paul Harris' greatest moments.
Oh yes.
100% natural. Never touched steroids.
Oh yeah, no, of course. 100%. All it is was acai.
Yes,
100% acai.
But yeah, so I mean, Akiyama's probably going to be juiced by juice. I mean, not steroids, but literally just soaking in juices and lotions for months before this fight.
Mm-hmm. I mean, here's the thing. The one thing about Aoki is that even if he doesn't get to the ground, he can still like wrap. He has just like that limber flexibility that he can still like get to your back or guillotine you without even like.
If he beats Akiyama, he'll be an all-time hero because Akiyama hatred is at an all-time high. Because when he came out, admitted that he cheated against Sakuraba, and then he didn't apologize to Sakuraba. He apologized to his mother, who helped him cheat in his judo days. So I don't think she was that apologetic.
Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget when Akiyama got booed out of the Saitama Super Arena after that particular fight with Sakuraba.
Oh my God. Do you think Akiyama is embarrassed that he got submitted by Chris Lieben?
Not really.
I mean, that fight was nuts. That fight was absolutely nuts.
The dude has his music career to fall back on, which is even more embarrassing. Way more embarrassing than a Tom Brady comeback of having to come back just for money, which I'm looking at right now on my television.
I just wondered what remember like Akiyama after he left UFC, he like disappeared. And like, was it one of those weird things where like he was still under contract to UFC, but like couldn't fight? No. And he had to...
He's super popular. He's super popular in Korea. I think he was pursuing.
Oh yeah, I forgot he's half Korean as well. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
he's not half Korean. He's ethnically Korean.
Oh yes, yeah, that's it. Yes.
He's married to a Japanese supermodel, and I mean, their daughter, who was a big kid, had her own TV show in Korea where like, oh, Girls' Generation's coming over to visit. So I mean, he's super popular in Korea.
Okay, well,
He must
listen,
he must have pulled a lot of strings to get that particular girls group to meet his daughter.
She had her own TV show. She was popular too. I mean, Akira, remember when he fought for the UFC? UFC had those like really weird Korean chair commercials. Like in the commercial, Akiyama was just like sitting in an office chair. Good times.
Well, I'm looking forward to that fight listen, that's one of those fights where I have to say if it happens. You never know what
this month
shenanigans are gonna happen. Aoki disappears or whatever, or like burns his house down or whatever it is, or like some weird thing, or like sexy Yama.
What if Akiyama knocks out Aoki when Oki comes back too? He speaks normal.
Listen, the true viral attempt. Oh, the way that fight can go viral, I'll tell you right now. Aoki knocks out Sexy Yama.
Oh my god, everyone that hates him in Japan would forget about it for a couple seconds and love Aoki.
So we're talking about Kichi and Abe. Do we think this will be a knockout? I think Chris, you said this could be definitely ending in a KO.
Oh yeah, it will definitely end a KO. Specifically, I mean, again, I'm down to the point where I'm not even gonna pick a winner for these fights. I'm just gonna say we're gonna see violence unlimited, not like that New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong faction, but it's gonna be violence unlimited and then some in the superior rule set between Kichi Kunimoto and Daichi Abe. I mean, way more so than the next fight we're going to be talking about in a matter of moments, and of course the main event. But yeah, Kichi versus Abe, violence unlimited, 100%.
I predict a submission. Unless Abe is able to get Strasser to break his finger, I think it'll be a submission.
Oh yeah, I think Strasser. We're going to see another head and arm choke submission. That's like his specialty. Yeah. That's like his finishing move.
I mean, and when you're at this point of his career, why take unnecessary damage?
I mean, and then whatever's next for them, I have no idea. Welterweight is I don't know. Maybe they can coax Marcos Souza to come back from retirement.
Yeah, but isn't Marcos Yoshio de Souza a middleweight?
No, I think he's welterweight, or I thought he was welterweight. Maybe he fought a middleweight fight because they had nobody at middleweight. He looks like he can make welterweight, I think.
Yeah, nobody except for Manel Cape's training partner.
Oh yeah, who's disappeared. I have no idea whatever happened to him. We gotta talk about the I think the official, well, my book, the official co-main, Daisuke Nakamura taking on Sora Yamamoto. And so here's the backstory for this fight. I don't know if you know this. So Nakamura was in U-Style, which was a shoot fighting promotion like UWFI, that whole thing. Kenichi Yamamoto, Sora Yamamoto's father, was part of that promotion as well. So Nakamura is basically going to be fighting the son of one of his pro wrestling buddies. And it is one of those where I'm like, I can't believe this is actually happening. And I'm probably Nakamura can't believe it either. CJ, what are your thoughts about this? Like this, I think this fight is going to be awesome. I really do think so.
Yeah, I mean, we'll know who is the real champion, like who holds the new lineal bouncer championship, because they've both beaten me, who used to hold that title as the most badass bouncer in Japan. So we'll see. I mean, they both finished him in the first round, but I'm all about Daisuke Nakamura. I mean, this might be the most legitimate opponent he's faced in a while. I mean, Omigawa's a stud though, even when retiring.
Even Omigawa, listen, for a guy, again, a judo expert as himself, lost numerous times by submission. And listen, even losing to Nakamura by submission is not It's unsurprising.
Let's forget. I can't pick against Nakamura. He holds a knockout win over the current champion very recently.
The unofficial, uncrowned Rizin featherweight champion.
Yes, yeah. Can't pick against him. I mean, that fight was crazy too, because there was like a crazy headbutt in that fight that sounded like two watermelons being thrown into each other.
And I think he got eye poke as well.
Yeah. But I mean, Nakamura is one of those guys that knows how to, I mean, it's kind of weird to say this, but he knows how to fight as an old man. It's like he probably understands that his reflexes aren't what they used to be, but he somehow is able to adapt for it.
The other crazy thing, though, is that Nakamura now is an adept striker. He knocks down people and knocks them out. Like,
old man
not even
strength.
like memeing. Old man strength. Yeah. I was watching a training video of his, and he had like weights, and he was like using the weights to like do jabs and crosses.
Do you think it's one of those situations where people are so used to his grappling that it's allowed him to open up his striking because people aren't expecting it?
That's a good question. I think so. I think also he just got better at striking. You know, at one point, like it was kind of like he just never was a striker guy. And then I think maybe he started focusing on it, and then he realized, okay, you know what, maybe he actually has some power behind him. Oh, you know, those pro wrestling, you know, training pro wrestling, you know, is actually might have helped him in that, because that does require good amount of strength to train and prepare for that. So that's entirely possible. I think, but in his grappling, the thing is that he's so good at what he does. The armbar is like, it's picture perfect whenever he just can get it almost at any time, that I think a lot of people don't even expect it. Like until it's actually on, he just always gets it on somehow.
Yeah.
Jake
what is it? The one guy, what's the old Bruce Lee? You'd rather be afraid of a guy that's practiced one kick 10,000 times.
Exactly.
I mean, you know what he's going to do, but you're not going to be able to stop him at doing it. That's a great weapon to have.
Exactly. Jay Krish, thoughts on this fight?
I mean, I think I predicted this fight was going to happen like a couple of podcasts ago. But when it comes down to this particular fight, it's not going to be no basic ass professional wrestling match. It's not going to be no basic ass grappling match. Considering the fact that you got a submission artist against a knockout artist who just so happens to be the son of a former New Japan Pro wrestler and UFC champion, not to mention a UWFI alum, I do think that you're going to see a very crazy, very violent matchup between an old professional wrestler, Nakamura, who basically was trained by the damn murder grandpa himself, Minoru Suzuki, just to do this type of shit. And so Yamamoto, who was trained by his dad, Kenichi, how to be, you know, not the best, but decent at this shit. So, you know, I'm not going to pick a winner. Like it's pretty much the theme for me this episode, not picking any winners, being neutral like Switzerland. But I do
not anymore. Switzerland's not neutral anymore.
Yep, for the first time.
Of course, because fuck Russia. But still, point of the matter is, when it comes down to this fight, the only thing y'all can't expect any winners or losers. All y'all can expect is pure violence. That's all that needs to be said. Y'all can't expect any winners and losers, even though there will be a winner and loser after this fight. All y'all can expect, much like the Kunimoto versus Abe fight, it's pure violence. Plain and simple.
CJ, do you think Nakamura can knock out Yamamoto?
Yeah. I mean, when he knocked out Ushiku, I mean, he knocked him out with an absolutely brutal knee. I think he can knock anybody out.
Did he wear knee pads for this specific knee knockout?
No,
I don't think he did, because he always looks like a super old school pro wrestler with just the briefs on, just the Speedo.
Here's the other question I got for you, CJ. when Nakamura wins, if Nakamura wins this, I'll say, will the ring girl who hangs in the trophy look as disgusted as the last time that it happened?
I hope she looks more disgusted. I hope he just gets more and more disgusted as he continues to win. And then I hope Ushiku comes out to the cage and drops his belt as a sign of respect to the true champion.
Exactly. Listen, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I think Nakamura wins by KO. I'm not even gonna say armbar. Yeah. CJ, you think Nakamura wins this or Yamamoto?
I think Nakamura comes out with knee in his corner and gets some of those sweet bouncing skills and is able to get the first round. I think he's gonna go for submission though.
Hey, listen, if there's one guy who I think if Ren wants to have an MMA fight, I think that's a good opponent to have.
I mean, it's almost like Sakuraba-esque, where it's like, just don't let him touch your arm. No matter what position you're in, standing on the ground, don't let him touch your arm.
Well, that's the thing, is that like even in the Omigawa fight, he would just grab Omigawa's wrist, and suddenly they're on the ground, and Omigawa is like stuck. I watched that fight 2 or 3 times. I'm just like, how like, it's baffling and like amazing just how Nakamura just gets people into these positions that seem impossible for an armbar, and then suddenly, oh no, they actually are in an armbar. And the other thing is that he knows if the person tries to escape, he knows how to get them back into position like with no effort.
I mean, I'll use an example from Deep Jewels this week. Another one, Saudi Oshima, even though she lost, when she gets a fight down, she is like a freaking spider monkey. She is like Nakamura. I mean, all of a sudden, out of the weirdest position, all of a sudden there's an armbar locked on. And I love seeing specialists like Nakamura. Like, if I have the opportunity to watch like a guy who's like a general all-round fighter or a specialist, I almost pick to watch the specialist every time, because I love seeing a guy that's really good at something. And I don't care if you're a jiu-jitsu black belt, I wouldn't want Nakamura grabbing my arm.
And listen, if Nakamura wins this and they do it a Grand Prix, I think opening first round match is gotta be Nakamura, Kleber Koike.
So what was that old character Takeda used to do where he dressed like a military commander?
Oh, Takeda? Nobuhiko Takada?
I mean, Takada, yeah, Takada.
Oh, actually, I think it was Generalissimo Takada.
Yeah, that's what I want. So if Nakamura wins, we got the last Rising confession. We got a nice little view of Nakamura and Takada talking. If he wins, I want Generalissimo Takada to bring him out to the ring for his next fight. And really embrace the pro wrestling side of his career.
I hope so. Oh, that'd be great. Good bring. I think that was Hustle, wasn't that right, Chris?
Yeah,
Hustle.
It was Hustle.
Where
love and support to Scott Hall. He's pretty much going through a tough time right now. He had 3 heart attacks, in case y'all didn't know, last night.
And also,
that was nuts though. When Nakura, it was almost as if they had never spoken to each other before. And you'd think that the pro wrestling world isn't that big, but I guess Takada is just such a big deal. He probably just talks to whoever he wants to.
Of course.
Ric Flair
But still, though, as much as the pro wrestling nut as I am, I wouldn't mind seeing Generalissimo Takada escort the winner to their next fight down to the ring, be it Yamamoto or Nakamura.
Oh, it's gonna be Nakamura. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's it's just destiny. This is his destiny. This is the year of the old man champion. That's that's how I have it. Listen, Cora won last week.
So I got a question. Yeah, I mean, that was let me try to make a pro wrestling joke. So who would you rather? Would you rather be in a grappling match with Nakamura, or would you rather be on a cross-Atlantic flight with Brock Lesnar and Ric Flair?
A grappling match with Nakamura, because at least you won't have to worry about any swinging things around.
I was about to say the same thing, Chris. I'll be like, there's be less dicks in my face than. Listen, I'll get Nakamura's legs across my face. Listen, I'm not.
TMI, dude. TMI.
I had never heard that story about that flight. I read an article about it. I think they did like a, what is it, behind the ring, whatever those
Dark
videos,
Side.
Dark Side of the Ring. And I read an article about it. And that flight sounds like one of the most insane things I've ever read about. I love the world of wrestling.
And listen, that Dark Side of the Ring episode actually like exposed a lot more than what a lot of people like had initially had known about that. It was like, wow, that like we just knew the basics of what happened, but like with when that episode happens, like, oh my god, like literally like they're Ric Flair's rubbing his dick on stewardesses and like all that. Yeah, it's like it was a lot worse than originally.
It's shocking, but does any of it surprise you?
No, not at all. Not at all.
No.
I know there would be like, oh my god, I can't believe this happened. Listen, if you think
I can believe shocked,
it, yeah,
listen, I can believe all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's top off this Rizin 34 show. Main event: Satoshi Dominator Yamasu taking on Osaka's hometown favorite, the Smoker Gym rep, Kyoei Hagiwara. CJ,
right.
we got Salary Man versus Marijuana Man. What do you think? How do you think this fight goes?
All right, I think if Hagiwara wins this, which he very well could, it kind of proves the Dominator never belonged in Rizin. And I mean, Dominator beat Bay Noah in his last fight in a fight that he arguably lost. I mean, that was a crazy fight. For Bay Noah to do as well as he did that early in his career against a guy that at one point in time was kind of being heavily promoted by the promotion. I have a lot. I mean, this isn't to disrespect Bay Noah. I think Bay Noah has made a terrific
great
transition.
What you're trying to say?
Yeah, he's really done a really good job of moving over to MMA, but that fight did not make Dominator look good at all. And I know that Hagiwara has some of the worst takedown defense I've ever seen, but I expect him to win this fight. And I think Rizin does too. That's why they put it together. I think they're trying to get some last couple drops of juice from Dominator's name before he completely falls off.
I also think that from a personality perspective, you got Yamasu Dominator, who's the salary man who works full time in an office and then goes to the gym after, and then you have Hagiwara, this bad boy, kind of rebellious dickhead from Osaka who smokes weed, not afraid to admit
allegedly.
Oh, allegedly, sorry. And is like, yeah, I think also that's the fight is interesting from a personality perspective, that these two are like so opposite in like their in their attitudes. I also think that the problem is that Dominator, I don't think he's a guy who's great on deep. He's at that level. I don't know if like once he gets to like the bigger arenas, bigger shows, if it's just because also don't forget he also lost to Mikuru as well in his Rizin debut.
A fairly one-sided thumping.
Yeah, I mean, Jay Chris, do you think that Dominator just do you think he's just a guy who choked on the big stage?
No, because the dude still at the end of the day is a former deep champion. And well, actually, let me rephrase that. A former 2 division deep champion, right? Featherweight and lightweight?
He was lightweight? CJ, was he also lightweight? No, he was featherweight.
Who is this? I'm sorry. I had a work message.
Dominator Satoshi Yamasu.
Ooh.
I mean, because I know featherweight, but wasn't he also a lightweight champ?
That doesn't ring a bell with me, but I may be wrong.
Yeah,
I can find this out.
I can look it up. I'll look it up and forgive me 1 second.
Oh, yeah, sure. Take your time.
You guys just talk amongst yourselves.
I mean, I know Jay Chris, you're not picking anybody, but I think this is an easy win for Hagiwara. Nothing in Dominator's 2 fights in Rizin have told me anything other than he can get beat up very easily. And against a guy like Hagiwara, listen, if Hagiwara is smart, doesn't get taken down for 3 rounds, then I think this is an easy win for Hagiwara. He can easily, we get another knockout win by the underground emperor.
Yeah.
I'm just seeing featherweight. I don't see him ever being the lightweight champion.
Well, maybe I was just thinking a little bit too off.
Maybe. I mean, we're expected to know 400 different fighters, so it all blurs together after a while.
Understood. I mean, at least we're not like the commentators, Joe Ferraro and Damian Brown or Frank Trigg or whoever, that have to actually jot down some of this shit just to realize it.
Jamie in the chat has a good statement. Curious how Dominator goes about this fight. Could easily take down his way to win, but not get him brought back. The other question is that unless if he gets tagged by Hagiwara, he's gonna slow down. The takedowns will become more sloppy, I think, the more he gets hit. So I don't. And
will he be able to do that? I mean, in the Bay Noah fight, he's able to get takedowns. You got to think that Hagiwara has somewhat better takedown defense than Bay Noah and has more MMA experience overall.
And then also, I think you said this before in the past, CJ. Fights start up on the feet, and listen, I can dominate. Listen, Dominator after that fight with Bay Noah, his face was fucked up, badly. Like again, we're talking about the Yamaniha's chin. What about Dominator's chin? Like since then, is he going to even be able to, can he withstand Hagiwara's precise brawling, very pinpoint striking? I don't know if he can. That's why I think this is an easy win for Hagiwara. I don't see this going beyond the first. I think
this is tailor-made for Hagiwara because Rising's interested in him. So I think they've picked a guy that they promoted in the past. So Dominator's got some name value, but I think he only has that name value because of the pandemic. If the pandemic hadn't been happening, I don't know if he would have ever been brought over to Rizin.
I don't even know about even Hagiwara. You might make an argument that there was no if the pandemic didn't happen.
But they're already kind of in bed with Hagiwara, and Hagiwara has a unique fan base, so they're interested in him. And I think
certainly unique.
Yeah, so I think that they're invested in giving, what is it going to be like? There's going to be the legitimate division, and then there's going to be let's give Hagiwara some fights on the side to artificially keep him up in the rankings.
But yeah, that's Rizin 34, gentlemen.
You know what? One more thing I gotta say when it comes down to the Rizin 34 main event, and really, this can really, what am I trying to say? This can go down for the entire fucking fight card as well. In that when it comes down to some of these fights, it may be just full of violence, full of excitement. Some of them may even end in submissions in the first couple of rounds, I would assume. But as far as the main event goes, while I may not have a particular winner, even though you assumed that shit, Andrew, I may not have a winner for the main event, but I would like to say that I do not think that the main event between Kyohei Hagiwara and who fighting again? Oh yeah, Satoshi Dominator Yamasu. I don't think that fight's gonna see the final bell. And to me, that's not a prediction. That's not a spoiler. That to me is damn it. Oh shit. But yeah, to me, that's not a prediction. That's not a spoiler. That to me is I just have to say it like that. Just cross.
I know, CJ. I know you gotta go. You and all that, but quick. two fights that you're looking to of this absurdly 16 fight card, or two or three, two or three.
Nakamura and the main event. And Okada. Ohada's also very good. Yeah.
Gotcha. I know if you gotta go now, if you want to promote your stuff, social media and all that, go ahead and do that because you got the personal life to deal with.
Oh yeah, I got work. Sogokaku.com. Got my bi-weekly podcast at Shuharata, and check it out. I gotta go.
And,
you guys have a great day.
No problem. Thank you again, CJ, for joining us. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Great to hear. And as far as
CJ,
first of all, when it comes down to CJ, you can check him out at sogokaku.com and obviously check out his podcast, like you said. But as far as the two fights that I'm looking forward to, outside the main event, outside the supposed co-main event between Nakamura and Yamamoto, what I'm looking forward to is Naeve versus Masayuki Watanabe, not Masaaki. Masayuki Watanabe versus Ryuya Fukuda, and maybe one of the kickboxing bouts. More specifically, Tiger versus Ryo Takahashi, and especially Kunimoto versus Abe. But what about you, Andrew? What say you? What are you looking for most?
Just call him Nave. Why waste all the syllables on his birth name? Just call him Nave. So much simpler.
Yeah, because it's like that old Coming to America joke. His mama called him Bruce, so I'm gonna call him Bruce. His mama named him Masayuki Watanabe, so I'm gonna call him that.
So unfortunately, none of the kickboxing matches I'm really looking forward to. So our buddy Lofsy, if he's here, will be very disappointed to hear that. But in terms of the MMA card, I am certain.
Andrew, can we hear you?
Looking forward to Daisuke Nakamura. Hi, Maya.
Okay. So you're looking forward to the Nakamura versus Yamamoto fight?
Yep. Jiri Ohara versus Akira, because listen, Ohara, and I think you could just get violence with Ohara. And I'll tell you this: Yamaniha versus Tezuka. I'm really curious to see how Yamaniha looks in his fight since his last fight against Kai and the Kurimoto fight, and also I want to see how Tezuka, if Tezuka can go on this great streak that he's been on, and also gets to once again show his fighting acumen on the big stage. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to those three.
Okay, understood. Well, before we all go, you can follow Andrew on Twitter at abenja1. You can follow me on Twitter at ChrisGary92. You can follow me on Instagram at ChristianGary92. Check out Andrew's stories and all his stuff on MMAsucker.com. Mine is through Focus Fights. You can follow on Twitter at Focus_Fights. We are planning to have an interview with one of the competitors who will be on the For the Culture show for GCW's The Collective coming up on April 1st in Dallas, Texas. But more so, the next time that Andrew and I hope to be back on is preferably for not just the review for this show, but hopefully some interviews for WrestleMania week. But still, though, if you want to follow us, you can follow us at We Are Rizin Pod, WeAreRizinPod, all in one word. You can check out the podcast. Hopefully, it's still up on Spotify, but we need to update it because we haven't updated it in close to 6 months now. And you can check out Focus Fights Audio, which is available on all other platforms as well. And also, one more quick reminder, Rizin 34 will take place from tomorrow's on Intech Arena in Osaka, Japan. Next Sunday, March the 20th, which will be at a special start time, considering that we just got through daylight savings in the States. It'll be at a special start time of midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific. So it will be March 20th in the Eastern time zone, March 19th for everybody else. And if you want to check that out, you can check that out via Live Now. Go to Live Now Global on Twitter or live-now.com for more information about the show. But other than that, Andrew, I think it's about that time. And I know that you got to go and handle your business. I just got to go so I can complain about March Madness a bit more. But for all of us, CJ, myself, Andrew, Benjamin, to all of you, we thank you for being a part of Rizin Fan Nation. We're even more grateful you're a part of We Are Rizin podcast. And as Lenny Hart always likes to say in closing, we say... And we out. Talk to y'all later. Andrew, I'll talk to you soon.
Take care. Hope your team does well. Hope your team does well in the NCAAs.
Hey, I got 2 teams, Texas Southern and Houston, going in March Madness. I just hope that Texas Southern wins the first 4.
Yes,
See y'all later.
Yep.